Did you bring some fish?
That is quite logical, Captain.
Where shall I strike?
Test your might. Test your might.
Get it out! Get it out!
Test your might. Test your might.
Your mother was a murderer! You smell like a leopard! You are not prepared!
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another special edition of the Geek Card. I am Razerbug, and I have a sore throat.
Oh no.
With me is the wonderful Robbie Glow.
Hello.
So we're both very excited, even if I might not sound it, because we went and saw Detective Pikachu over the weekend. So
Yay.
this will be a special show where we talk about what we thought of the film, and we'll go into things like sort of plot and cinematography and some of the technology behind the effects and all that sort of thing. But this is going to be a very, very spoilery show, and as I say this, I'm currently trying to dodge two sets of spoilers, one for the Game of Thrones finale, and the other one for the WWE pay-per-view event that happened at the same time. So I have not been able to open social media at all today.
No Twitter for you.
No Twitter for me. So yes, this is your spoiler warnings. If you have not seen Detective Pikachu, please close the podcast and go and see it, and then come back. But do not carry on listening any further if you have not seen Detective Pikachu. Robbie,
Cool.
do you think they're gone?
Yeah. Let's
Excellent.
go.
Okay, so from here on out, we are talking Detective Pikachu. Do we want to talk about our geeky weeks?
I saw Detective Pikachu. How about you?
Nice.
I did a little bit of WoW, but I'm more I did a lot of cinema actually in the last couple of weeks. It's been that sort of season, hasn't it?
Yeah, that's quite cool.
Yeah.
Yes, I didn't.
I saw Detective Pikachu. I saw The Hustle that has Rebel Wilson in it, and I saw the Tolkien autobiographical movie.
Oh,
as
wow,
well.
okay. Cool.
So it's been a bit busy.
Yes. Yeah, I also haven't done much wowage. I think yesterday evening was the first time in a week or so that I'd broken it out. So there we go. Yes, so really we did just see Detective Pikachu, although Robbie's seen a couple of others. So let's start with the obvious question then. What did you think?
I really enjoyed it. And I was kind of skeptical because it was are we going to just enjoy it because it's a nostalgic thing for, people who grew up with it? I was quite impressed with the fact that the story didn't center around, well, for one, it didn't center around the game plot, which is about kids on adventures. That was a nice thing, and I also liked the fact that there was a lot of sort of integration between the Pokemon canon universe and our own universe.
Yes, yeah. Do you remember? Probably a good couple of years ago now. We actually talked about the fact that there was rumors of a Pokemon movie, and it was going to center around a Detective Pikachu.
Yeah.
And if you recall, I was rather skeptical about this idea.
Well, I wonder why.
But I have to say, I agree with you. I absolutely loved this film. I think they did some very, very clever things, made some very clever choices. Interestingly, by about Act 2, I was getting slightly annoyed at it because I was thinking that it was making some really, characters were making some really illogical choices and behaving unexpectedly or ways that didn't seem sensible for people to behave. But of course the reveal of Act 3 was an explanation as to all of that.
Yeah, it was one of those ones where even though the first half of the film, the story was a bit kind of like, oh, okay, that's kind of a simple plot.
Yeah, it
It,
started out. I was thinking, "Oh God, this is really a kids' movie."
yeah, and then it wasn't.
No, then it got very clever.
It did get very clever. Yeah.
I
Um,
thought they were a little fast and loose with what with abilities that Mewtwo has in canon versus in the film, but I can forgive
yeah, but
that.
that was the same with the Pokemon movie, the first anime movie.
Yes, probably. Yeah.
Where like Mewtwo was this omnipotent, all powerful being that could manipulate everything from the weather to like your mind.
I was sorry. Go.
It was one of those ones where at least they did have a nod to that franchise in that way, because like what the central plot was about an escaped Mewtwo, which was the first, like in the first Pokemon movie, they were talking about how like archaeologists had found this being which was Mew, and then they harnessed like another creature from the DNA, which they did in this film as well. They had like that scientific out in the middle of nowhere research lab. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought they were very I want to say careful, but that's not exactly what I mean. They were very clever in the way they approached some of the more you let it go in a video game, but in the real world, this would actually be cruelty sort of things. So they set the film not in Kanto or Johto or any of the other regions, but in um, a Tokyo meets London at high speed. Is the best way I can describe it.
It was like Tokyo met New York with London roads.
Yeah, because the buildings were London buildings. The roads were clearly London roads with London markings, like London
But
traffic
then they
signs.
sort of had like Tokyo style city lights, but also New York trains.
Yeah,
And
so
things
it
like
was.
that. It was meant to be like just a metropolis that took from everywhere.
Yeah. So by setting it in a new city, they got to redefine some new rules. So this is a city in which Pokemon battling is illegal, and where keeping Pokemon in Pokeballs is considered cruel. And people usually only have one Pokemon who is a sort of
Their bonded partner. Yeah.
yeah. Now I thought this made for a really really cool world, because you didn't just see lots of people walking around with Pokeballs strapped to their hip. You actually saw all sorts of different Pokemon that were really beautifully rendered out and really beautifully done and realized in a way that was photorealistic, but at the same time not freakishly so.
Yeah, it was one of those ones where they kept true to the descriptions from the Pokedex, but managed to make it believable in real life.
Yeah, interestingly, I hear, although I've not seen confirmation of it, but the one of the things that happened very early on in this film's production was that they reached out to the artist that had produced those Photoshop.
No, yeah, I had seen that.
Which is obviously absolutely the right way to do it if you're going to borrow their artistic style. I don't know, but they may even have been involved in the realization of the Pokemon.
Yeah, because that was going around Tumblr for a few years. I seem to remember.
Yeah.
But it was very great. It was very nice as well, because at the beginning of the film, they hadn't established where it was really being set at that time. But you did sort of see the whole, it's a little town, and then there's loads of fields where wild Pokemon roam free, and there's people with Pokeballs because they're not in a place where it's banned, sort of thing.
So the film starts in a quote unquote normal part of the world where Pokeballs and Pokemon battling and training is perfectly accepted, and the film actually starts with them trying to catch a Cubone, which I thought was just the cutest thing. That's the fact that they get absolutely terrified when it breaks out and they just try and leg it. I was reminded of the fact that actually in the game that is an option, is just to run.
Yeah, and also in the game it says it's dangerous to go out in the wild without a Pokemon, and that's why.
Yeah, because he like taps the ground. He taps the ground behind him with a bone, and like it's like a mortar shell has gone off.
Yeah. It went to show that, like, when like you play the Pokemon games and you go, it can't be that bad, and then you think about it, no, hang on a minute, these creatures have like super powers and can destroy buildings and roads and all sorts.
I was really surprised that one of the first sort of introduction to the Pokemon world we got was someone commenting about the fact that Cubone is permanently sad and mourning his mother whose skull he wears.
Yep.
I'm like, whoa, that was like you just found the darkest of the Pokemon and you just went right there.
That's the thing, though. That's actually one of, like, if you read the Pokedex entries, like people have done in the game, some of them are ridiculously dark. Like, there's a Pokemon that steals children and then takes them to a forest, and then they don't come back. And that's one of them. It's ridiculous. Some of them are horribly dark. But that was the darkest that we got in the film, I think, in terms of like lore-wise to the Pokemon universe.
Yeah, one thing I was quite interested in is that the Pokemon that featured, unless there was a need for a specific Pokemon doing a specific plot role, they mostly focused on Gen 1 and Gen 2 Pokemon, which I can't believe is an accident, because to kids it won't matter, and to the parents of the kids it'll be the ones that they
remember the most.
Yeah, they nostalgize.
There was a couple from newer generations when they got to the new city and you saw all the because at the beginning it was sort of like Pidgeys flying around.
Yeah,
but then they had other ones as well.
That was the funniest thing. One of the funniest things watching it was everyone in the cinema, like at any one time, someone in the cinema would be saying the name of the Pokemon. So when the opening shot where the Pidgeotos are swooping around, they might be all going Pidgey in the cinema.
This is what I would have loved of being like seeing it in like somewhere like London, because like I could count on one hand the amount of people that were in the cinema with me when I went.
It wasn't a full cinema. They had it on in the biggest screening of the multiplex I went to.
Was it more than 10?
Yeah, it was probably about 40 or 50.
So there you go. I was in one way I quite liked it because I was in quite an empty theatre, so there was like no distractions and whatever. Although you did occasionally, like when someone like their favourite Pokemon from when they played the games, you did sometimes hear a squee.
Yeah, we had that with Amanda and I were a bit like that when the Arcanines were walking around with the police officers. Yeah, we were very like, oh, doggies. But yeah, the funny one was just like randomly from behind me. I just kept hearing Pika, Pika.
Oh, but the thing is though, like when you think about how they integrated the city, where they sort of have like the rules of like, you know, the bonds are more important than like the fights or whatever people have. Did you find it interesting, the sort of Pokemon that someone had? Like, you know, their character, why would they have that sort of thing?
Yeah, I did. The lead female character having a Psyduck I thought was a strange one.
Psyduck's adorable.
Psyducks are adorable, but they constantly acknowledge all the way through the film that they're exceptionally dangerous to have around.
Yeah, if you make one really upset, like it was shown in the film how bad that can go wrong. But I just like the fact that it's like, oh, it's constantly anxious and has headaches. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, that's not deep at all to millennial culture, is it? But yeah, the one that got me out of like the combinations that people could possibly have was the fact that like one of the detectives had a Snubble.
Yes, I loved that.
Wait, what? Why he's a police officer? I get that, and I get that it's a dog, but I'm just like, why?
But it's a pink bulldog in a dress.
Well, it's not really a dress, is it? It's like the fur resembles a dress.
Yeah.
I just thought to myself, okay. But in the sort of you know, when they had the shots around the city and down alleyways and stuff, did you figure it was appropriate to what area they were in, depending on what Pokemon were around?
Yeah, I mean, it felt natural that that the Pokemon that were in the scene would be the sort of animal that would live in that sort of area. I mean, I noticed around the food markets, you got all of the
Apoms with the wanting of food.
Apoms. Yeah, trying to like as naughty monkeys trying to nick food and that sort of thing, which I thought was it worked very well. The interesting ones were when they got out to the lab and they got to really sort of go all out on really unusual Pokemon, or at least to me, because the ninja duck things I never encountered before, and the giant
they were later generations, but the Torterra ones were like probably one of the most impressive that were shown, because like they were doing sort of experiments where it was animal testing. That's what it was. That's what they were doing. If you had to like compare it to the real world. that what
Yeah.
they were doing in that lab was, genetic testing on animals.
That scene was actually the one of the parts where I started to think, oh, this film's got some massive plot holes, because they're obviously where they shouldn't be. The bad guy sets a bunch of the Pokemon loose to get them, but then after that, never says a word. And when he gets an opportunity to confront the people who've seen him and would know of his dastardly plot, he doesn't say anything and then just lets them get away. And that was the point where I'm thinking, well, this is ridiculous. Why did that guy? But of course,
the big twist of the whole fucking film wasn't what the plot was. It was just that they had genetically modified a Ditto to copy humans.
Yeah.
And it kept the face, which was the best bit. Because in the anime, it was canon that there was one particular Ditto that couldn't recreate faces.
Yeah. I loved that. The reveal, or as Pikachu himself put it, it has a twist.
It is twisty.
It was very twisty. I loved that. What did you think of the whole integrating people and Pokemon together?
Well, that was the plot of one of the Pokemon games in Pokemon Black and White. They had a character that they had the evil party that is like the Team Rocket equivalent. I think it was called Team Galaxy or something. Oh no, that might have been the one after. Anyway, there was like a son or a someone that was related to the head of the team, who was just like, I don't believe Pokemon should be in Pokeballs. I think they should be out and free. And that was their whole thing of this team, was that they didn't catch Pokemon, they released them. They didn't believe in confining Pokemon strictly into Pokeballs forever. And so that was kind of where that came in. So this kind of pushed that a bit more, where maybe someone actually had, the resources to create a place where this was how it is, and this is what this film turned into.
Ah, I see. I didn't play the later games, you see, so I missed that that particular.
I'm just gonna just quickly look up the character now, just to make sure I have got that right. But it sounds right, because there was 2 Pokemon games that was set in that universe, so I had to remember which one it actually was. He said, okay, so it was a little bit different. It said that this character was the leader of Team Plasma in Pokemon Black and White and aspired to create separate worlds for humans and Pokemon, but didn't want them to be together or confined to the other world.
I quite liked the nod to Team Rocket in the substance in question was called.
Oh, I know, right? And I went with a friend, and she whispered to me, "He's like, do you think that's Team Rocket?" And I'm thinking to myself, they haven't established Team Rocket in this.
No, I think it was the same stylized R that they used for Rocket, though. So I think it was just a nod to that extra part of the franchise.
It was canon that this is a canonical film, so it wouldn't be unheard of to hear about Pokemon terrorist groups.
No,
so that could have been that.
Speaking of nods to elements in the franchise, I love the fact that at one point there was a Snorlax blocking the road.
Yeah,
that was just
where they had to have a Machamp direct traffic around it, because it fell
directing
asleep.
Traffic.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I love those.
There was a little nod
wonderful
towards
bits
the end. I think it was just before the ending shot. Did you see that there was a shiny Squirtle?
I didn't see there was a shiny one.
Like little group of Squirtle at the bottom of the stairs where they walked down, and one of them had a purple shell, implying that it was shiny. So that means that it is in that film canonical again that shiny Pokemon exist.
No, I missed that. I'd clocked that there were Squirtles.
And also they were firefighters, which was adorable.
Yes, I loved the firefighting Squirtles. That was brilliant. I love the fact that they got all of the original starting Pokemon in there somewhere.
I mean, whether it was an evolution or whether it was an original, because there were Charmanders walking around.
Yes, and obviously the big Charizard in there.
That whole scene with the sort of the Fight Club bit was very weird, especially when they had which was probably, apart from Bulbasaur, because Bulbasaur's my ultimate favorite, they had the Loudred being speakers, which I was just like, that's good, because that is exactly what they would do.
Yeah, I thought that was absolutely brilliant. I liked the fact that even though they were battling, which was illegal, they still didn't keep the Pokemon in
they sort
Pokeballs.
of like
So
respected the fact that like that was the rules there, but they also kind of acknowledged that maybe some Pokemon actually do want to fight.
but it also meant that damage that they'd suffered in previous fights was
Yeah,
still
because
there. It
there's no
hadn't been healed
Pokemon
by a
centers in there because
Pokesensor.
there's no fighting.
Yeah.
I was kind of sad that they didn't have sort of like they had all these police officers, but there wasn't a character that I could see that even looked remotely like Officer Jenny.
No, in fact, I don't remember there being any female police officers at all. I think they were all blokes.
I mean, I was thinking to myself after the film when I was going back to the Pokemon partners, who decided what. It kind of made me think: does that mean that they had to have been caught before, or did they sort of meet them in the city and just work together, and they're unofficially their trainer? Because they're not so much for fighting as they are to work together. So, is it more that the Pokemon decide to work with them, or?
Yeah, I mean, I guess assuming like Pokemon are reproducing the same way humans, or not humans,
Yeah, well, the
but
Pokemon
mammals do.
breeders in the games are a thing.
Yeah, so presumably, there are people breeding Pokemon in the city, but then presumably they would have had to have got them from the countryside at some point, and I guess that was done with coercion and taming as opposed to with Pokeballs and storing them as electrical energy.
I was actually quite surprised that they weren't using Pokemon as like a resource for power. Like I was quite surprised there wasn't like a factory scene with like Voltorbs in it.
Well, who knows? There might
in
be.
that particular city. There,
I mean,
wasn't.
not that we saw anyway. I mean, I think there are so many Pokemon that didn't appear on screen at all, despite the fact there was plenty of diversity in terms of people spotting their favorites. And I think it's a case of save some of your tricks for something else, because I can't see them making a sequel to this because obviously. Yeah, I mean, I can see them making more films in this universe, but I doubt it will be
the only thing
along
I can
the same
think
lines
is that he stayed. The younger guy stayed as under his father's wing and has taken over the agency, or something like that.
Yeah, that would work. But I think the unique circumstances that created the Detective Pikachu won't be able to be replicated for the second film without.
Well, it might be that
forced.
Be to do with the actual city itself. Now that the the creator of it ended up being a bit of a dickhead.
Yeah. I highly suspect they'll make more films in that world now that they've got the technology, because developing I think it was Framestore, a UK visual effects house, that did a good chunk of the effects.
Yeah.
They're quite well known for doing sort of fur and feathers shaders, and now they've developed the technology to produce those photorealistic, beautiful Pokemon effects. You know that they're going to start making more films with it, because there's no way you'd go to that effort just to make one and then that's it.
Yeah.
So
can we just talk about how potentially, depending on how you saw the scene, that there was an accidental Pokemon murder in the film?
Oh, yeah, you mean the Mr. Mime?
Me and my friend were talking about it afterwards. Like, okay, so they established that the things it thought were real were there, and it did damage to it.
And you did hear a woof of flame.
Does that mean this whole miming of setting fire to a Mr. Mime's office happened?
Does it actually set them on fire?
By the sounds of it, it's either that they get knocked out, which is what I assume would have happened, or it went a step further and they accidentally set fire to a Mr. Mime's illusion.
Well, with the Pikachu towards the end, when he gets injured, I noticed that they kept very close to the games, in that Pokemon only ever faint.
Necessarily. But in the games they do die. There are graveyards for Pokemon in the games.
True, but I also assume that was old age.
I guess that's kind of true. Like natural sort of death rather than they die through fighting.
So yeah, I was a bit confused about that as well. There was someone who played Pokemon Go in the UK when it first came out. I was just like, yeah, it's a Mr. Mime, screw him. Freaky
Yeah.
things.
Yeah, and now you've seen it in like sort of close to real life.
Yeah, exactly. And it seemed to be that like screw those guys was the opinion of anyone who encountered Mr. Mimes as well.
Yep. I mean, that's Mr. Mime was always a weird one.
Yep. So that was a thing. That was did they set fire to Mr. Mime? Not sure.
By accident or not.
Yeah. Also, I thought I really was like wanting to just say, oh, that escalated quickly. Like, we've got to get inside this guy's head. Okay, so he mimes opening a door and stepping inside. Right, fine. Then immediately mimes pouring gasoline over him. I'm like, whoa! Didn't even try and like knock him around a bit or anything. No, you went straight to that. I'm going to burn you alive.
Well, that's the thing. Like, you don't actually see. I can't remember in the film whether you actually saw Pokemon injuring people, apart from when they had that whole plot thing.
I mean, the Charizard is like smashing things around and knocking people about and doing when the humans get in the cage with the fighting Pokemon. But then all of the humans are shouting like, "What the hell are you doing?" Interfering with the Pokemon in the first place. So
yeah, it's sort of implying that people have been killed doing that.
Yeah, I think it's probably the case of Pokemon can injure humans, but humans also understand that Pokemon don't do it intentionally, and it only tends to happen when humans do something stupid like climb into a battle arena.
Yeah,
Psyduck managed to blow people away as well. So,
I mean, Psyduck just one of my favorite scenes in that whole film, and not aside from the Bulbasaur bit, was them in the G-Wiz.
I couldn't get over the fact they were in a G-Wiz, but there was 4 people in there. It's like, you can't fit 4 people in a G-Wiz. Sorry.
Well, technically, it was 2 adults and 2 mammal Pokemon.
Yeah.
But Pikachu was in a baby seat, which was hilarious.
That was very cool. I love the fact she carried Psyduck around like a backpack most of the time.
Because he's just so anxious. It can't be trusted. She obviously loves him or her. Love Psyduck.
I was when the female lead was introduced, I was just like, oh no, this character is so over the top. It sounds like they're going to just portray all people as like caricatures of their role in the thing. Because up until that point, we'd only seen the main character and really just the police officer, and he was kind of a lot like, I'm the chief of police, and that's my only sort of character traits. So when she turned up sort of ridiculously over enthusiastic and conspiratorial, I was like, oh no, this is gonna be one of them. But actually, it worked out almost like she was in on the joke and she was amming it up for his effect. So,
I mean, she wasn't my favorite character, but she wasn't the worst.
No, I think she was fine. The need for them to be a romance angle there rather than it just being platonic, I thought wasn't necessary, but Hollywood, that's what they go with.
I mean, to be fair, it took me until the credits came along to realize that it was actually Rita Ora was in the film. Like the fact that she was actually a scientist, the one doing the Mewtwo. I was like, I only know Rita Ora as a singer. I don't know her as an actress. What is going on?
I have to confess, I didn't recognize the actress playing the scientist either.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just looking and I'm trying to see what she actually been in before. Oh, it's okay. She was in 50 Shades. Okay, fair enough. That's why I didn't know. So, what was your sort of, without spoiling it too much?
Well, I think we spoiled it quite a lot already.
We haven't spoiled the main bit, which is fine. But what was your favorite scene?
That's difficult. I quite liked the end of the what's the word? Charizard battle, because the Magikarp logic was brilliant.
God, yeah. Just like, it just needs a bit of experience. Oh wait,
one scene that was sorry.
There's just like they say, oh, it'll be fine. Magikarp will do fine. Oh, it's done exactly what you think it did. Oh, it's done exactly what you thought it did.
There was one really weird moment that it was visually really impressive, but it was really strange. So the kid decides to go and see the head honcho and somehow talks his way past reception and gets up there to see him. Right, fine, great. But it turns out that the guy has been sitting at his desk with an unevolved Eevee, waiting just in case someone comes up and he has to give his little speech about evolution, at which point he can then, evolve Eevee into a Flareon right then and there. It was like, given that needs a Sunstone to do it anyway, I was like, what, huh? That seems a bit unlikely.
Maybe it was more of a. It was definitely more of a demonstration of like his beliefs
Yeah,
and stuff. But they didn't necessarily have to do that. They could have just had a picture of it or a photo
yeah.
or a video of it happening. You didn't have to do it.
I mean, does he keep unevolved
Has he got
Eevees
like
around every?
yeah, has he got a load of EVs? Just and various stones in his desk.
Can you unevolve an Eevee back into an Eevee?
You can't unevolve. You can't unevolve. You can sort of give them items so that they never evolve.
Oh,
But you don't. As far as I
I
remember,
wondered
there's
maybe
nothing-
he had like a specific demo Eevee.
Oh, demo Eevee. No. Unless it was like a genetic Eevee that he just sort of asked it to,
Oh, yes, it
manipulate
could be.
itself. It might not necessarily have been a Eevee that he used an item on.
Mm.
It might be a free-forming Eevee that can just choose which one it wants to be at any point.
I did think it was also a bit dumb when the kid who'd apparently grown up wanting to be a Pokemon trainer didn't recognize a potion when he picked one up and accidentally set it up in his own face.
I mean, I don't think unless it's the whole hasn't things changed since I was 10 years old, because now he's like in his 20s.
Yeah.
And it's typical that 10-year-olds are the ones that go out and have their adventures.
Mm.
But in this one, it seems a bit kind of, maybe people have that as an actual job and are entertainers rather than, the whole world revolves around the fact that children have to go out on adventures.
Yeah, I mean the kids, the 20-somethings at the beginning of the film didn't seem to have Pokemon, but seemed to be in a place where catching Pokemon in Pokeballs was perfectly acceptable. So presumably there's a bunch of people who just generally don't have much to do with Pokemon in their life. And then in areas where training and battling is more prevalent, that's all that the Pokemon do. Whereas in this city that they've based it in, everyone has much more interaction with Pokemon on a day-to-day basis that doesn't evolve around anything other than normal day-to-day life.
Well, I mean, if you've grown up in the city that the main story's set in, you wouldn't have bat an eyelid at the idea that people live side by side. But if you went out and travelled anywhere, you'd be like, oh, hang on,
yeah,
what's going on with this? Oh, we've forgotten a very important scene.
What's that?
When he was on the train into the city.
Yes.
And he met a Pokemon in the aisle.
Oh, yes, that was gorgeous.
Silly
I mean, it probably wasn't
tongue.
for him, but
no, silly Lickitung.
Silly Lickitung. I love the fact that they treat it like a suspect package. Like, is this Lickitung with anyone? And everyone on the train's like, not with me. No, not with me.
And also, that was like the first time that he was like, oh wait, Pokemon travel to this place rather than they belong to someone. Because then the video starts and says we all live together side by side, and obviously the destination is that city, so it's implied that Lickitung was from there.
Yeah, it's like a cultural orientation.
You've just said a bad thing, implying that Pokemon are owned. Now watch this demonstration video before you do another faux pas.
Yeah. Oh, that was the first time other than the Cubone, that was the first time you really get to see close up and the interaction with the actors. And I thought that was. I mean, not only were the effects absolutely gorgeous, but the actors the main cast actors all did very well with acting around obviously items that aren't there. But there were some funny items for the extras in the background of in the aftermath of the final scene. You had extras who were like, they'd obviously the extra on set had obviously gone to like act as if he'd scooped up a Pokemon in his arms and was walking away. But obviously in the technical for technical reasons or editorial reasons, or whatever, the Pokemon he's going over to decides to just walk along next to him as they leave the shot. So you got this guy who's just walking with his arms out for no apparent reason, and a couple of the extras were sort of bending down and patting Pokemon who had then sort of got up and left, and they were still just patting thin air. So there was a couple of scenes that amused me, but you had to be really like looking at the extras in the background and not focusing on the story to spot them.
So, if you had to rate this out of 10,
I think probably an 8. It was good fun. It wasn't. It didn't inspire me to immediately want to go back and watch it again. But from a technical point of view, as someone who understands a lot of what's going on with the visual effects, it was impressive, and it was very enjoyable. Like I say, it was at times I thought it was getting silly, but actually the plot reveals eventually all turn around and everyone worked out to be.
Yeah. I think for the fact that it was okay, the whole point of the story wasn't to be a super amazing story that you want to listen to again and again and again. It was more of this is a nostalgia trip, and it meets with real life, and it sort of is on the big screen, and it's a video game franchise. Video game franchise movies have never been great. But this is the one where I would be like, no, this has solidified that video game films can actually be really good.
See, I thought Warcraft did that for me, but I see where you're coming from. This is also a really good video game to movie treatment.
Yeah, I mean, Warcraft was a bit different because the story actually had a lot of meaning. But this story was more of this is something that's happening here rather than this whole franchise revolves around this point.
What about you? What would you rate it?
Probably, I'd give it a solid 8.5. It did the job.
Yeah.
It was very good to look at. It had moments where, if you were familiar with the franchise, there were jokes that you got. And also, don't ask me how my friend picked up only on this point when I asked her what she thought of it. There was a joke about how the fact that Pikachu talks and no one else understands him, right? He made a joke about how most people just think I'm cute or try to touch me, and then he said that some people try to put fingers in me.
Yeah, I heard that line and I was like, wait, what?
So are we implying that like Pokemon being molested is a thing? Because I fucking hope not.
I don't think so. I think that's supposed to be much more a throwaway,
a throwaway gag of, oh lol, Ryan Reynolds implied that someone fingered him.
No, I don't even think it was that. I think it was implying like poking him in his ear or something, and they're just
right.
And
yeah,
it's just
not
kids
not in the way that it came across.
No, I think that's something purely us cynical adults have misinterpreted. I don't even think Americans would have necessarily taken it there immediately. That's maybe us being dark.
Yeah, that's probably it. So read into that what you will.
Yeah.
But I think it reestablishes that video game themed movies don't have to be shit.
Yeah.
So that's always a good thing.
And
I mean, this wasn't so much made for a gimmick, because a lot of films have been made because it's a gimmick and we're going to cash in.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
This is actually
I mean, I think this was world building in a way that they were like, right, we need a reason to be making a Pokemon movie so that we can establish a Pokemon franchise. What's the best, what's the best pre-existing bits of story in the lore? And how can we tie them all together with a solid script? And I think in that respect, it did a good job.
Yeah.
What's your favourite scene though?
Oh, all the Bulbasaurs.
Oh yeah,
of course. They were adorable when they had little frog faces.
I did notice that you don't see many evolved forms in that movie. Like there was the Charizard. There was the Eevee who evolves just to demonstrate what evolution looks like.
There was an Arcanine with the policeman, and there was
if they were Arcanines or Growlers, because there
was both of them.
Oh, right.
The closer they got to the police station, the more of them you saw.
Right. I suppose Machop was an evolved form, but then you never saw any of the other evolved.
You didn't see Machop or anything, no. You did see.
You
trying to
saw
think.
Gyarados, obviously. You saw Magikarp.
I saw Gyarados because that was the gag of that bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm pretty sure there was a Blastoise somewhere.
I don't think there was. I don't. Oh yes, no, there was, wasn't there? Because that was in the. It was the first fight. It's Ghastly versus.
Oh, Gengar versus Blastoise. Yeah, they had those evolved forms as well.
I
Yeah.
thought that was a Ghastly. I didn't think it was a Gengar, but
I'm trying to find a list of Pokemon that are actually in the film. Oh, here we go. A guide to all the Pokemon. Okay, well, I'm not going to read through all of them. I just want to find the ones that were. Oh, Greninja's an evolved form.
oh, is it okay?
Yeah, it's the last. Oh, Ludicolo. I forgot about how Ludicolo was in the film. At the coffee shop.
Which one?
With
Of...
his little
Oh,
silly,
yes, that's right.
silly sombrero.
Oh, that was the. I had to say that was one thing that after we get the final reveal of the whole Detective Pikachu thing, you then had to go back and note the fact that he always refers to women as either doll or dame. And it's like, okay, well that was fine and cute at one point, but now the end of the film has happened. Actually, that's just being a male chauvinistic dick.
Yeah, I mean, although you have to admit though, like all of the Pokemon looked like how they would be described. There wasn't a Pokemon that I thought looked, oh, that looks wrong.
No, I mean the only ones I thought looked a bit far from the given descriptions in lore is the Snorlax was quite small, but then it could just be a young one. And then obviously the garden ones, I can't remember what they're called, but the big sort of tortoises with a world on their back.
Oh, Torterras, yeah.
Torterras, yeah. They were obviously too large, but then that was the point of the
point of them, because they literally do have like rocks and trees on their backs as normal. Yeah, I mean Psyduck looked I don't know, there was something about Psyduck's head proportion that seemed a bit wrong, but that was just me being like, would it really have a big head like that? But then I thought to myself, like, no, it's got like psychokinetic powers. It's definitely going to have a huge head.
Yeah.
But even in like the anime, it looks like it's got like a big head for its body, but like the bigger its body, the bigger its head. So I don't know. To me, it just seemed a bit. I mean, it was probably the eyes, actually, to be fair, rather than the actual head, because the eyes seemed huge.
I surprisingly, I thought Psyduck was one of the ones that just seemed instantly right. I thought Pikachu seemed a bit strange when he got wet, because all of his fur was almost like matted like proper wet fur, and obviously you never really see fur on Pikachu in the games or the anime. But it worked fine because it is supposed to be a mouse, so. Yeah,
I mean, and Charizard had proper reptilian skin.
Yes, yeah, he did.
And Ludicolo's little sombrero hat was made of leaves.
I missed that.
It was a giant leaf with a coconut on it.
Ah, there you go.
And Jigglypuff had hair, so that answered that question. It wasn't a balloon texture; it was hair.
Yeah, that's true. I'd forgotten we got.
I did like how they got the voice actors from the original Pokemon anime to do the sounds.
Yeah. And they were always putting in game sounds and theme songs and all that sort of thing. I think, the nostalgia trip there was strong.
Do you think they gave some people their Pokemon partners after they cast them?
I don't know. There was very, very much this feeling of, you know how they say like, oh, dogs resemble their owners and their owners resemble their dogs.
There was a bit of that going on.
There was a lot of that going on. I thought the police chief with his snobble, they both looked the same sort of fed up, grumpy expressions all the time. Although obviously they were both very, they were being cutesy with each other once the door was closed, as it were. Yeah, I think they may have done. They may have decided that some characters fitted a particular type of Pokemon, like one way or the other. I wonder, it'd be really interesting to hear like a making of afterwards, whether or not they changed what Pokemon they were going to give people.
Yeah, because I was kind of thinking like if they had cast someone differently, would they have given them a different Pokemon, or whether it was more the character had that Pokemon.
I think it could easily be a bit of both, but we won't really know until we get directors or writers doing.
Yeah, I'm just going through the rest of the list. Here
the point where he said like, please take us to a healing Pokemon. I really thought we were going to get to see Chansey.
Oh yeah, but that was more of a Pokemon Center.
Yeah.
They had Doduo and Dodrio in the fields at the beginning
They
because
did.
they're like, and they also had.
They had the snuffle waffle what the things, the ones that evolve into the pillar swines. Sorry, that's the one I'm thinking of.
They had the
swine.
pandas. They had panda
Oh yes, they
Pokemon.
did, didn't they? Yes, I'd forgotten about them.
Yeah, they had them at a park, like they were having their like the evolved ones were looking after the kids.
Hmm.
They had that bit going on. There's even Pokemon on this list that I'd actually hadn't picked up on that were in the film. There was where is the list now? There was one. Apparently, there was a Machoke. I didn't see the Machoke. I saw the Machamp.
I didn't see a Machoke either.
And Krabby was in the film.
Krabby, really?
Yeah, I reckon that must have been by the docks bit.
Right. There were floats of various Pokemon. Like there was Articuno and I forget the name of the bird, legendary bird from one of the later games. But there was floats of some of the Pokemon that were featured as.
Yeah, I think this list is the list that I'm on. That's on the Screen Rant says it's about ones that are actually there. Quote unquote there. But there was only 54 apparently. Like out of 720, however many there is. There's a lot of in the the alleyway shots with all the different shops and things. You have loads of different Pokemon on the signs, but not necessarily in the not the game, in the film. So
I wonder if the ones they used were ones that they were able to accurately and effectively translate and realize
in
with
that
the
setting.
effects. Yeah, it might be quite difficult to do, say, like Magnetron or something. Whereas things that were quite close to existing animals were easy enough. I mean, a Charizard is basically a dragon, and they've got a lot of experience doing dragons these days, and that sort of thing.
I guess like the city-dwelling Pokemon, like monkeys and rats.
Yeah.
Although weirdly enough, they didn't get any of the fox Pokemon in for it, which I thought would have been a better choice. I mean, they had like cows. They had buffalo in the fields, in the fields with where cows would be and things like that.
Yeah.
And they have various Pokemon lurking about in the sky, and as such, did you would expect. But it was still quite good. I was quite impressed with it visually.
Yeah, I think visually it was absolutely amazing work, and kudos to the VFX artist who worked on it. I think, like you say, we've only sort of seen 50 out of 700 plus Pokemon, so I think there's plenty to do. More films on. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. I'm heartily endorsing it, and it is a stamp on the old Geek card, I believe.
Yes, it is sealed with our approval.
Yes, indeed. In fact, let's do that right now. There we go. One special Pokemon movie Detective Pikachu seal. There we go. Fantastic. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I'm glad to have been proved wrong from my skeptical naysaying of past episodes.
Yeah, I'm glad, because it was something that it was in the back of my mind, thinking, oh god, there was going to be some people that love Pokemon games who are going to hate this film. But so far, from what I've heard, that no one's been that I know of that's a big fan of the franchise hasn't hated on it. So
it's done good bank as well.
God did it. I know.
Yeah. It's it's not quite Avengers Endgame level, but
I don't know. It has nearly doubled its budget, which was already a very high budget.
Yeah.
To put it into perspective, it was $150 million budget.
Yeah, I think it took $200 million its opening weekend or something.
Yeah, it's at nearly 300 as of last Friday, which was a week. So in the first week, it's done ridiculously well.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
So if you haven't seen it yet, then I hope you're not still listening to this podcast. But if you have seen it, then do let us know what you thought of the film. Were there any bits that you didn't like, or was there any bits that really stood out for you? That sort of general feedback would be awesome.
Yes.
You can of course tweet us at TGCShow. I'll start that again. TGCShow. Enunciate, dear boy. And that's the easiest way of getting in touch and letting us know what you thought of Detective Pikachu.
Yeah.
Robbie, how can people follow you if they would like to do that thing?
You can find me on Twitter at Robbie_glow.
And I am at RZBG. And that will just about do it for us for this episode, I believe.
Yes. Oh, before we go, we have to mention that we're on Girls Gone Well on Sunday.
Oh yes, indeed. I had nearly forgot, but yes, we will be appearing on Girls Gone Wow and talking about
Changes
community.
in the community via apps and social media.
Yeah. So that's all good stuff. Check them out at girlsgonewow.net.
Yes.
But for this week at least, I will say bye-bye.
Bye.
You've been listening to The Geek Card with your hosts, Razerbug and Robbie Glow. You can find The Geek Card wherever fine podcasts are found and on the web at thegeekcard.podbean.com. The Geek Card is a proud member of the Voice of Geeks network, where you can find other amazing podcasts like Orange Lounge Radio, Starboard Power Coupling, and Girls Gone Wow. Find out more at www.vognetwork.com.